Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah, Pearls of Wisdom and Food with Keto. And the only thing that hasn't really changed much is my name and my YouTube channel. But I've gone through a lot of shedding of my skin, some molting, as it were, in my journey. I've been doing these videos for like 5 or 6 years. I began as a devoted Weight Watcher person. A lot of you came from that background as well. Even at the same time you were listening to me and doing your little Weight Watcher things, we were doing it together and we had the same discipline and structure that we have now, all the way to carnivore and back. So there's many different facets, and you don't get to be 68 without having a lot of different food plans and journeys in your past, like me. So I was a fat little child. I was adopted, and so I was a fat little child, and food was my comfort, my best friend, my go-to, and my first addiction. Um, so at 9 or 10, I became really the caretakers of my parents, who were severe alcoholics. Gosh, if they only cared about food like I did, I would have had plenty of food in the house. And so I began babysitting, as many of you know. And, the parents of the children always thought I was such a responsible little thing. Well, I was parentified, as they say in the therapeutic world, because I was taking care of my parents. I was making excuses for why my father wasn't at work. He was a lawyer in a law firm, and then eventually the MBTA. My mother was a stay-at-home housewife. It was a pretty sordid past that I inherited. I was brought into this. I was adopted at 3 months, and I was an only child. So, I already had quite a few little strikes against me, or not normal, in a very normal Norman Rockwell upbringing, in a very high socioeconomic white town. Um, and it was surreal. It was. And then you've got my outrageous both addicts as parents. It was crazy. And so food was my constant. And so I would go to houses where I babysat and defrost steaks and fry them up in a pan and eat them. Things that people wouldn't notice were gone from the freezer. If I ate all their wheat thins, or their corn curls, their Cheetos, they'd probably notice, but they wouldn't notice a slab o beef from the. I guess I was aching to be a carnivore way back when, right? And so, anyway, the journey began there. I was always the fat friend, the funny friend, the one that had the parties, um, the one that like usually didn't have a boyfriend in tow. And I would listen to all of their things, when all of my girlfriends were, bereaved from breakups and stuff like that. Who do you turn to? You turn to your fat friend to have a food fest, right? And so I tried many, many things over the years. And of course, back then, boys and girls, we didn't have internet or any of that stuff. So if you had a calorie book, it was like your little Bible, always looking up broccoli with margarine. How much is that? And I would make foolish attempts at losing weight, not knowing. And then my family physician began to prescribe for me, I guess, amphetamine, speed. And I dropped 40 pounds. I had a little Boston whaler, and I would boat over to the next town that had a McDonald's on the water. So I would, at 13, 14, I would pull my boat over there. It was a different time back then. And trot into McDonald's and get large French fries and tab. And I managed to lose 40 pounds. I also smoked back then, 13, 14 years old, with permission. So I didn't like the burgers because they put stuff on them. I was a plain burger person, and the idea never occurred to me to ask for them to do a plain burger. So the French fries and the tab sufficed me, and then I'd go babysit in these homes. I was also unbelievably addicted to sugar, and I would bring my little kids to the playground that was next to a penny candy store. And yeah, you got it. My babysitting proceeds went to penny candy. So when the kids were playing, they didn't care. that I was eating candy, you know, so I could eat it because they were just having fun being kids. And so it was kind of a sad thing. I started going to camps at a young age to get out of the house for starters because it was such an alcoholic, chaotic place. And so I'd get to camps where they fed you breakfast, lunch, dinner, always snacks, always, always, always. So my weight, you know, I probably at my highest I was like 175 and active. So it was kind of a weird thing because they had tennis and horseback riding and all that kind of stuff. And because I was a funny little sad child, like a lot of comedians are, you know, they're hiding behind their humor. I would put on all these one-person act plays and at the camps and stuff like that. So I started doing all of that, but I was like the eater, the eater, the eater. And when I wasn't eating candy, I was eating raw cookie dough, raw brownie batter, boxes of frosting. That's before they came out with cans, and then they came out with cans. But with the boxes, you would add boiling water and margarine. And like butter was like this, you know, it was like this, I don't know, something from nectar from the gods or solid something from the gods. And it was never in our house. It was always some sort of butter, but that's all I knew, right? And coffee rich. It was this like thing that it was the first like we look like we're really cream, but we're not sort of thing. And so I'd have that. So I was just a overeating little piglet. And my first bestie was a girl that moved into town. Her father was GE, so they moved them around a lot. She too was adopted. She too was fat. And so the two of us, Barbie and Sally, you know, we ate our way through everything. And then we discovered alcohol. And, you know, if any of you are familiar with your own journeys, you know how that took off. And so it was drink until you're drunk and then go out for pizza or Chinese food. And so I just became this slow-moving train wreck of a food addict and then alcoholic at a young age. And I got married to the first young lad that would have me. And I know, you're surprised to hear this. He was adopted too. So he was a bit of a rebel. And so we got married and I did everything just the way that it's supposed to be done. Photos by back rack and the wedding gown that I couldn't have in my house. And it was sent to Backrack photography studios in Boston by cab, and I put it on there, and then they took the wedding, all that stuff. Everything was done just the way it was supposed to do, and I was a fat bride. And but then I was on my own, so I could buy food. I was married to somebody in the Air Force, and so yeah, I could buy all the foods that I wanted. And so I was kind of on my own. It was great. I was like head of the household. And so the food part became very, very important. Part secretive. I mean, I could eat in public. My husband's parents were big on breakfast, lunch, dinner. And I'd spend the nights there, especially when he was in places like Germany and Texas and places like that. And I'd spend the night with them, and you know, everything was just perfect always, and there was always wonderful foods, and his father would cook the meat on the grill, and we'd go out to fancy restaurants and always have the really nice meal. And so it was as normal as it could be for somebody like me that was like the mess that I was. But I worked very hard at appearing okay. And so yeah, so I had many, many years of that, and I had burned through 2 marriages when I found Overeaters Anonymous. It was in the 70s. I was like 24, 25. I gave up smoking, and I found Overeaters Anonymous, and that became my life raft. I wasn't normal, but I worked so hard at doing it with my sense of humor and being a server and a bartender and working catered events and all that kind of stuff. You know, I passed as just a very funny, overweight person, and not without the issues. You know, I've been watching some secret eater episodes out of the BBC. Thank you, Dupuy. Dupuy turned me on to it, and So I was kind of secret, but then I was kind of out in the open because I could be, because I was married and, presenting this normal sort of world and life. And so um, I did retain some OA um, structure and discipline that I did carry into all of my food journey episodes. So somebody was asking me how it all began. So I was in my early 20s, like 24, 25. Now I'm 68. So, 40 something years of aware of the food addiction. And I'm one of those that feel that if you have an addiction to food, you're always going to have it. It's just managed better or poorly at certain times. Pregnancy, of course, was the free for all. I put on 43 pounds with each pregnancy, two pregnancies, two sons, and my treat was always my obstetrician was next to McDonald's, and so I'd go to the weigh-in, and then I'd go to McDonald's for my treat because I knew it'd be like a month in the beginning of the pregnancy before I had to go see him again. And so I had two 10-pound months. I'll never forget it. His wife was an obstetrician too. And the two of them beat me up. If you have another one of these, we're going to throw you in the hospital. And it's like I didn't do anything different. Like a lot of us that got pregnant that were foodies, we'd cut back or become a little bit more aware of it before we went to our next appointment. But the weight came off. And at that at that highest, I was, I think, like 185, both pregnancy at the end of the 9 months. And I lost the weight I breastfed because, as important as it was nutritionally for the kids, it was like, you could use all these calories. And so, I'm all for that. 1,000 calories a day with breast milk. Oh, boy. And so my babies were born when I was 28 and 31. And so then, I used to make the joke that the chubbiness that I retained was baby fat. And so, yeah, I also had divorce diets. And if any of you got divorced, you know what that's like. You do lose your appetite because it's almost like your body putting you into a dating shape and form, right? And so food didn't have the magic that it did. Just a lot of crazy stuff being a female in America. And so I always had Weight Watchers back there. Like if I really need it, I'll do it, but I don't know. And so it became my last door on the left. And so I found Weight Watchers after doing Smart People. I did Smart People with their tracking system for like 1,000 calories a day. And then I found Weight Watchers, I don't know, 7 years ago. And I went to the meeting. I loved it. Probably the discipline, the structure, the app on the phone, just little things that we like about certain food plans. And so I did that. And which is probably why I like Instacart. It's that same sort of fun with an app. And so now I do Chronometer, and I track and weigh there. So Weight Watchers I did for about 18 months. I dropped an initial 17 pounds and never lost another ounce after that. And then I went to low carb, high fat, which is exactly what I'm doing now. Just add potatoes and fat bombs and maybe some of that low carb, no carb, sawdust containing bread. So I went keto under 25 years ago and lost, I think, another 16, 17 pounds and then stayed there as well. And now I'm mostly carnivish. There's still, you've heard me explain that. So now we're up to like 2019, where I still have a couple of veggies. I will admit that I had my veggies from the Big Green Egg with my Great Big Porterhouse a couple of days ago. And I did have some gastrointestinal issues. So my days with veggies could be totally over and not mostly over. I don't know. We'll see. That's a topic for another video. So, I hold close my structure and my discipline and what works for me. I'm constantly tweaking, finding what's good, hence going from low carb, high fat to keto under 20, total carbs, to like carnivish, and finding what works for me, what sits with me. When you get older, things change. That's just the way that it is. What you used to have and get away with, do I long for salads, great big huge salads? As Dr. Vong would say, big ass salads. I used to love my big ass salads. But they went the way of what my stomach dictated. So it's 2019. It is May. And so this is how it's rolling today. And so it's always going to be a journey. I make sure I get enough salts. I drink mineral water. I get the electrolytes as well. And I love my meat, mostly beef. And that's how I roll. So that's part of my journey, because a couple of new people were asking me. And rather than have them search 1,600 videos, I thought I'd just do a little recap of what works. So when you're doing your program, if you're new to keto, new to carnivore, new here, just be gentle with yourself. Do what works. Don't get overwhelmed. It's not worth it. There's no whelm either. So you don't want to be overwhelmed. You don't want to be whelmed, because there's no word for it. You just want to do your 24 hours the best that you can. I'm here. So email me with questions or ask questions here. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Sarah, Pearls of Wisdom and Food, with Mostly Carnivish Diet. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye for now.